Matt over at the Super Inch Garage sent me this screwdriver he customized just for me. He inlaid a 357 Magnum case in the butt. How cool is that? I'll pin a link to his video on this screwdriver in the comments. I recommend checking out the Super Wrench Garage. I wanted to do something for Matt as a thank you. I had an idea in mind, and this old screwdriver seemed like a good candidate. Somebody decided to turn it into a chisel. The blade was severely pitted. I think this poor thing spent some time out in the elements. The ferrule was cracked in 2 places. The wood handle was split in several places. And the butt was severely damaged, no doubt from its time being used as a chisel. Other than that, it was in pretty good shape. Turnscrew is a literal translation of the French word tournevis. My research suggested screws and screwdrivers probably originated in France and Germany in medieval times, when screws were used to hold pieces of armor together. These 2 screwdrivers represent the earliest commercially available designs. The design with the flat blade and oval handle with flat faces was called the London pattern turnscrew. The cabinet turnscrew had a flat blade that transitioned into round. The perfect handle design and the modern round blade designs would come later. I was able to pull the handle off of the blade pretty easily. I think the rust was all that was holding it together. On the bright side, at least the blade was straight. I decided to get aggressive with the blade and go after it with my angle grinder with a coarse grit flap disc. That flap disc made quick work of the rust and pitting. I used my orbital sander next. I went from 60 grit down to 220. I was able to get a pretty decent finish. I cleaned up the edges on the belt sander and a sanding drum in my drill. I used my Dremel and Scotch-Brite discs to smooth out the sanding marks. This project was completed before I got my fiber wheels. If I was doing this now, I would have definitely used them. I scraped the wood handle with a pocket knife. I started off sanding with 60 grit. I had a lot of reshaping to do. I used a small round file to reinstate the decorative groove. Here's the handle after the 60 grit. I really like this 3M Pro Grade stuff. The paper backing is very pliable. I sanded the handle with 120 over a piece of paper to catch the wood dust. I mixed the dust with some wood glue. I used this to fill in the many cracks in the handle. Here's how the filled cracks looked after being sanded down. I stained the handle with some yard sale dark walnut. This project was completed before I bought the mahogany poly shades that I used on the Western Auto screwdriver. My plan for the ferrule was to try to form it back into shape so that the gaps in the cracks were tight enough to solder. My little jeweler's ball-peen hammer came in handy. At this point, I should have just polished the ferrule and glued it back into place. Here's some footage of my sad and feeble attempt at soldering the cracks. I actually managed to melt the brass. I tried to fill in the hole I made with solder. The whole mess fell apart when I started to sand it. I ended up splicing in a piece of brass from a fishing lure spinner blade. I was able to save the ferrule, but it looked worse than it did with the two cracks. I did get some experience soldering. I'm hoping I'll do better next time. I got some white water slide decal paper for my inkjet printer. I printed out the Super Wrench Garage logo and coated it with clear enamel to seal the ink. Then I cut out the decal and applied it to the handle. I had coated the handle with the same clear enamel before applying the decal. After the decal dried, I recoated everything with clear enamel. Chuck and I gave the blade and the ferrule a flitzing as a last step. This London pattern turnscrew was in really bad shape. I have to admit that I was ready to give up on this project after my soldering disaster. But I think it came out pretty good in the end. The inkjet decal came out pretty well. I'll have to try some more decals on future projects. The ferrule looks good from far. I glued the whole thing together with clear epoxy. I'm not sure it's strong enough for everyday use, but I think it's going to spend the rest of its life as a wall hanger anyway. Thanks again to Matt at the Super Wrench Garage for the awesome 357 mag screwdriver. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Check me out on Instagram. I try to post something new every day.